recognized speaker and an important voice advocating for exploited children and survivors of sexual violence. It's always hard to hear my experience summed up this way. For 8 years after I was rescued and returned home, I swore up and down that I never wanted to write about what happened to me. I just wanted to leave it in the past. Then the criminals who abducted me were finally brought to trial, and I had to talk about it. But it just felt like facts on a piece of paper, and that felt wrong to me, because all those things happened, but that wasn't all that happened. My goal in writing my first book was to tell the rest of that story. My goal when I stand in front of an audience is to let them know that they're not alone and that whatever they go through does not define who they are. So I stepped to the podium with that purpose in mind. I smiled and said, "Thank you so much for having me here today. It truly is a pleasure to be here. I feel so lucky that I get to travel around the country and meet different people and work with different organizations. I've learned so much. But the one thing I've noticed that we all have in common is that we all have problems. We all have trials, and we all have those mornings when we just want to pull the covers back up over our head and go to sleep until all the problems disappear. Unfortunately, that never seems to work. At least not for me. But I've also noticed that every day we make choices, and when we're faced with struggles, we have a choice to make. Either we surrender to our problems and give up, or we decide to keep moving forward no matter what. I'm not at all suggesting that once you make the choice to move forward, your problems disappear, but making that choice is the first step down that path. We are so often worried that we will be defined by what happens to us. And yes, that sometimes happens when we let it. But it's important to remember that you are not defined by what happens to you. You are defined by the choices you make after. Some people will look at me and forever see the little 14-year-old girl who was kidnapped all those years ago. But when I look in the mirror, I see a wife, a mother, an advocate, a friend, a survivor. Someone I want to be. Someone I never want to disappoint. No matter what our situations may be, we always have the power to decide who we want to be. After the speech, we moved on to a nearby banquet hall restaurant for lunch and a Q&A session. A 94-year-old lady seated at my table leaned over and said, "Dear, you did such a wonderful job, but I'm disappointed that you didn't speak more about God and His influence in your life." "God certainly does play a big role in my life," I said, "but some things are a little bit more personal than others, and that is one of them. I have always felt that this particular topic is a sensitive one. As a devout Mormon, I have a very strong faith, but I recognize that other people are equally devout in their own beliefs. I always want to be respectful and not give the impression that I'm shoving my faith down anyone's throat. Plus, I've always felt that my relationship with God is between God and me, something I treasure as very private. I don't want to sound as though I've sold my soul or cheapened my faith, and I definitely don't want to come off in a preachy way that might make others feel that I'm disrespecting their faith in any way." This same lady happened to be the one saying the blessing over the food, and I have to admit, I was ready to eat. Exhaustion had set in, and I didn't want anyone to notice. Maybe it was because I was 11 weeks pregnant. Maybe it was the lack of a substantial breakfast or the time change from Mountain Standard to Eastern Standard Time. 2 hours might not seem like a huge difference, but at 7 o'clock in the morning in Ohio, it is 5 a.m. in Utah, a time I'm not at my best. In fact, I'm usually flat on my back, mouth open, and snoring. Or so Matthew tells me. That morning, I was functioning at a very low level of energy, but trying to appear as if the exact opposite were true. And this sweet 94-year-old woman got up and gave what felt like a 20-minute prayer. Maybe that's not considered a long prayer to other people, but I wasn't sure if I was going to make it through. When the prayer finally came to an end, I wolfed down the lunch that was put in front of me. I would have had seconds if that had been an option.